What is framing? Framing describes our responses to situations, including our ethical judgments, are impacted just by how those situations are posed or viewed. The effect of framing is when our decisions are influenced by the way information is presented. Equivalent information can be more or less attractive depending on what features are being highlighted. Now, in any kind of decision making, context always counts. The simple reframing of a situation can produce a totally different answers from the same person. For example, people would buy a hamburger made of meat labeled 75% fat-free than meat labeled 25% fat. In fact, when questioned, these people will tell you that the 75% fat-free tastes better than the 25% fat burger, even though the burgers are very identical. Now, considering the following hypothetical, John is shopping for disinfectant at his local pharmacy. He sees several options, but 2 containers of wipes are on sale. One is called Bleach Ox and the other is called Bleached It. Both of the disinfectant John is considering have the same price and contain the same number of wipes. The only difference John notices is that Bleach Ox wipes claim to kill 95% of all germs, whereas the Bleach It wipes says only 5% of germs will survive. Now, after comparing the two, John chooses the Bleach Ox wipes. Doesn't like the scent of germs surviving on his kitchen counter. John's decision to buy the Bleach Ox over Bleach It wipes was informed by the effect of framing. Although both products were equally effective at fighting germs and essentially claimed the same thing, their claims were framed differently. Bleach Ox highlighted the percentage of germs it did not kill, whereas Bleach It highlighted how many germs it did not kill, a negative and positive attribute. Now, the effect of framing is an error in thinking in which people make a decision based on how a situation is presented. People are generally biased to pick an option that they view as a gain over an option that they view as a lose, even if both options yield the same result. They are also less likely to make a riskier decision when the option is presented as a gain versus a lose. Why does this happen? Our choices are influenced by the way options are framed through different wordings, reference points, and emphasis. The most common framing draws attention to either the positive gain or negative lose associated with an options. We are susceptible to this sort of framing because we tend to avoid lose. Now, as we go through life, we tend to think that we make decisions based on objective information and events that have happened. We also tend to imagine that our brains work like tiny but powerful supercomputers. We imagine they take in facts and make rational judgments. But the truth is a little more complicated than that. Now, what is cognitive bias and how does it impact our way of thinking? At their core, cognitive biases are our brain's attempt to be efficient and make decisions quickly. They serve as a mental shortcut so that our brain can speed up information processing. They help us more quickly make sense of what we're seeing and move on to make a decision, and in this sense, they're considered an adaptive tool. These mental shortcuts exist to make our brains more efficient, but instead, they can create systematic errors in our way of thinking. This is because they rely on our perceptions, observations, and experiences and not on actual fact. While many of cognitive biases we experience are unconscious, we can take steps to avoid them. Before we can delve into avoiding cognitive biases, we need to understand these biases and where they most likely to show up. These can affect our decision-making, behavior, judgment, and memory. There are some sure signs we can tune into that help us determine if a cognitive bias is interfering with our decisions. Signs that you could be experiencing cognitive bias include turning into the news and stories that confirm your opinions, attributing other people's success to luck, constantly blaming others if things don't go your way, assuming you are always correct, and assuming that everyone else shares the same opinions or beliefs. Although these signs might be easier to spot in others, we can work to recognize them in ourselves as well.
What is conformity bias? Conformity bias refers to our tendency to take cues for proper behavior in most contexts from the actions of others rather than exercise our own independent judgment. So, how does conformity affect decision making? Understanding conformity can help you understand why some people follow the pack even though their decisions appear to be out of character for them. It can also assist you in seeing how the actions of others may impact the decisions you make. The word comes from the Latin con, meaning in some way, and forma, meaning shape or style. Thus, conformity means to do something in a manner similar to another or to agree with another's behavior. And the examples of conformity, although conformity doesn't sound like much, it can reshape a person's behavior drastically for a short period of time. First is greetings. Have you ever noticed that whenever you meet a person, you automatically hit them with a "How are you?" followed by a firm handshake or a bow in some cultures? That's because we are led to accept that this is the only way to greet someone. This greeting, however, changes when you meet your close friends, family, or significant another. The next is eating manners. This is one of the prime examples of informational conformity. Eating manners are dependent on the location or people around us. Whenever we visit a fancy restaurant, we eat in a sophisticated manner by looking around how everyone is eating, but once the situation changes, so does our eating method, say at food truck, then we know no bounds. In similar terms, when we eat with friends, we just eat the way we like. It changes dramatically once we are with our work superiors. The third one is following trends. Humans are basically sheep and have a sheep mentality when it comes to trends. We love to follow trends, regardless of what they are or if they add any positives to their lives. It can be anything from the latest fashion trends to a new diet. We just love to follow what is popular and latest around us, even though it can cause damage to us in the long run. The fourth one is the right age. We as a society do this another thing to trick ourselves into thinking there is a right age group for everything, and once you are out of that range, you are doomed. Want to study in college? Do it at the right age. Want to get married? Do it at the right age. But this right age is our arbitrary honesty. At this point, I think this societal rule was made just to stop people from doing what they love after a certain age. Cues. We cannot talk about conformity without talking about cues. We have become so subjected to the idea of following the rules that we make them at every single place. Bus, stops. For example, a person who's there before anybody else will become the starting point of the queue, and then everybody else will follow. If you happen to break that, you will be faced with the pure anger of those people. The sixth one is education and career. Once again, even in this aspect, society reigns supreme, as we choose this not just on the basis of pay scale, but how will they be accepted by others. Engineers and doctors are everybody's favorite. However, if one decides to become a trucker, they are frowned upon, and even the person doing the job feels inferior.
The confirmation bias describes our underlying tendency to always focus on and give greater credence to evidence that fits with our existing beliefs. Consider the following hypothetical situation. Jane is the manager of a local coffee shop. She is a firm believer into the motto, hard work equals success. The coffee shop, however, has seen a slump in sales for the past few months. Because of her belief in the effectiveness of hard work as a means to success, she concludes that it is because her staff is not working hard enough. This makes sense, as she did recently catch several employees taking extended lunch breaks. Jane consequently decides to extend the store's business hours and threatens to dismiss any employee she sees slacking. Despite these efforts, coffee sales do not improve, and the shop is now spending more on employee wages. She then decides to consult with other coffee shop managers in the area, who identify her store's new, less visible location as the cause of her sales slump. Jane's belief in hard work as the most important metric of success led her to mistakenly identify employees' lack of effort as a reason for the store's falling revenue, while ignoring evidence that point to the true cause, the shop's poor location. This is a result of the confirmation bias, which caused Jane to notice and give greater credence to evidence that fits with her pre-existing beliefs. Why it happens? Confirmation bias is a cognitive shortcut we use when gathering and interpreting information. Evaluating evidence takes time and energy, and so our brain looks for a shortcut to make the process more efficient. When we make decisions, this bias is mostly likely to occur when we are gathering information. It is also likely to occur subconsciously, meaning that we are probably unaware of its influence on our decision making. As such, the first step to avoiding confirmation bias is being aware that it is a problem. By understanding its effect and how it works, we are more likely to identify it in our decision making.
Now, before these lessons end, I want you to leave a quote saying, "The eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend."